What is up, everybody? It is Coach Matt O'Brien. I am the author of The Magic Pill, and this is Magic Pill Mondays Live. And I have a very special guest I'm going to introduce here in a second. But the purpose of Magic Pill Mondays is to educate, motivate, and encourage and inspire people to incorporate a little bit of movement and a little bit of mindset and a little bit of happiness into their life. And hopefully, we will be accomplishing that today because I brought in some heavy artillery, and her name is Samantha Litrico, aka Sam, and she's the beautiful face that you see on the screen. Sam, besides being one of my favorite clients, is a mindset coach, and she has overcome tremendous adversity in her life, and I'll let her share a little bit about that. And now she helps other people do the same through her mindset coaching. And her purpose on the planet is to empower others to cultivate their inner clarity and confidence to bravely live their best life. And I couldn't have said that better myself. So, without further ado, Sam, why don't you say hi to everybody here on the Magic Pill Live Megacast and on YouTube?
Hey everybody, I'm so honored and privileged to be here. And Matt pulled the favorite line, so I'm gonna remember that. I'm definitely privileged to have the opportunity to speak with y'all today. This is gonna be awesome.
Absolutely. And since Sam is a mindset coach, and mindset is a huge part of the health and happiness journey that I incorporate in my coaching, and obviously she does in her coaching. And our minds met last Friday when we were doing a training session. We just got on this crazy tangent about some of the action steps that we can incorporate to what I called the title of the show, Discover the Champion's Mindset in All of Us. And so she brought up some really cool stuff, and I really want to dig into that today for my benefit because I am always learning and always growing. If you're not learning, you're not growing, you're dying. At least that's my philosophy. And I'm excited to learn and for you guys to learn as well. So, with that, I want to kind of have you share a little bit about your story as far as overcoming adversity and the reason we got together in the first place, working as client and coach, was kind of tied into this as well.
Cool. Well, some fun facts about me. I am very, very, very passionate about my faith. Love serving in my community. I love theater and performing. I also love to bake. So if anybody wants a street treat, let me know. And I'm really passionate also about what I do for work and just helping people to manage their minds because I think the most valuable tool and resource that we have really is the quality of our thoughts because it determines the quality of our entire life. And I think that this really stems from what makes me most unique, I guess, is that I do have cerebral palsy. And depending on how familiar that you may be with this condition, there is a wide spectrum in how someone can be affected with this condition. For me specifically, I was born, let's see, 3 months prematurely. I have very poor balance and like motor and function skills within my legs. My arm muscles are really strong though. I can definitely carry some weight there. But it's something that's definitely very noticeable. So I walk weird. I walk with a walking stick. And for me, in my entire life, I have been very driven and very committed to the idea of doing anything that anybody else in the world could do and finding a way to probably even do it better. And that's how I found passions for theater and performing and for gymnastics. So I always wanted to find a way. And I very much so had an attitude of like, I don't really think that I have a problem. And I think what happened by the age of 10 is I started to notice, okay, people are looking at me funny because I'm walking weird or they're making jokes or hey, I'm definitely the odd one out here in the group. I was like, you know what? Yeah, never mind. I don't want this body. I changed my mind. And so throughout my teenage years, I definitely really struggled with the idea of just feeling different than everybody and like not really fitting in. And I kind of lost my way a little bit in my teenage years. And then as I grew older and really matured in my faith, and I recognized that there was a much bigger picture and purpose outside of myself, and really learning to surrender my weakness in my physical body, to God. Honestly, His strength has shown through me, and I've seen so much abundance and great blessing that's come from that. And a lot of it was my faith plus being in an environment where I learned about personal growth and development and just the power of managing my mind, because I recognize, hey, if I can't change my circumstance, then I just need to change the way that I think about it. So I got really passionate about learning to manage my mind better. And once I got myself to a place where I was feeling blessed, I wanted to begin to bless others. So that's why I am really passionate about the work that I do in mindset, because I think everybody, no matter what your challenges are, whether they're physical, mental, emotional, relational, financial, we all have something, some type of mental hang up that we can get caught up in that can prevent us from stepping into and being the best version of ourselves. So overcoming that all starts with the quality of our thoughts. So that's me in a nutshell.
That is a pretty powerful nutshell. And uh, when I was learning in prepping for this, asking, Sam in her coaching business, what her specialty is, other than mindset, you mentioned you help remove those sabotaging thoughts that we all have, myself included, and then you help people take ownership of self and discover their authenticity, and then ultimately cultivating a relationship with God and their faith, and giving some of that pressure that we put all of ourselves over to a higher power. And when you learn to do that, like the power of the mindset, like our mind is the most powerful drug on the planet. It has the ability to control our health, our healing, our happiness, and largely it's a choice. So I always say the mind is a muscle and you have to train it. And today we're going to give you a little bit of training with her expertise. And I also brought in some heavy artillery with this New York Times bestseller, James Clear, who's one of the authorities on forming really good, powerful, positive, life-changing habits. So strap in, buckle up, because we're going to dive into what I'm curious about learning from Sam based on our conversation last week. Let's dive in right into what she calls decision fatigue. And I know as a business owner and the parent of two kids, working with a beautiful wife that also has two businesses she's running and traveling. She just got back from a trip. I run a fitness coaching business, and look a little haggard this morning because I had to get up at 4:30, coach the early classes. So when I went to get on, I realized, oh crap, I haven't shaved. So I went to the bathroom real quick and shaved and tried to clean up a little bit for you. But let's dive in, because I am feeling a little bit fatigued, at least physically, but mentally I'm excited to be here. So tell us all what you mean by decision fatigue.
Sure. Well, I think that this also stems from my own story and my own weakness and wanting to work to overcome that. So, authentically, vulnerably, I'll say that through certain portions of my life, I've really struggled with making decisions. I don't know if anybody else can relate to that, but when it comes
Yeah.
to like a very serious crossroad, it's like this analysis paralysis of, oh no, like what do I do? And if I choose path A, like this could happen. If I choose path B, this could happen. And sometimes we just get ourselves in this like mental panic around the point of decision. And one of the greatest things that I think I'm learning is that sometimes like you literally just have to decide, and it's not a matter of like path A or path A being the correct path. It's how you choose to walk the path in terms of your character that can make it the correct path. And when we begin to move, that's when, God and our faith or circumstances or other people or resources can align with us to let us know, hey, are we on the right track or do we need to realign to somewhere else? So, first thing I just wanted to say is that when we're stuck, sometimes we just need to get moving, right?
Mhm.
So that's the first point about decision fatigue. And then secondly, I think that we can all say, listening to this, hey, like, I want to be successful. Like, who doesn't want to be successful? Like, there's something wrong with you if you're like, no, I don't want to be. We all do. Like, we want, the fit body. We want the successful marriage. We want the promotion at work. We'd like to be making more money. We want to be in our dream job, yada, yada. We want these things. We all do. But often when it comes down to like the nitty gritty work that we actually have to put in to make that happen, it's harder to convince ourselves to actually put in the work, but we do want that end result. So, how we can help to overcome that, right, is to remove opportunities for self sabotage. Because ultimately, when it comes to doing things that we don't like to do or that are uncomfortable, so for example, like changing our diet up or our workout routine, sometimes that can be really hard to stick to, and we can find reasons or excuses not to follow through on our own word, and then we self sabotage. And we have it's like a set of beliefs about who we are and what we're capable of doing based on what we've done before. So we always like to fall in line with what we believe of ourselves to be true. So to take away opportunities for self-sabotage and excuses, make it easier for yourself to follow through on your word and your commitment in the point of decision when it comes down to whether or not it's time to do something. So, for example, if you're making a commitment to yourself that you're going to go to the gym Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and you usually are really tired after work and you don't feel like it when it comes down to that point of decision, how can you make it easier for yourself to follow through on your word by already having your gym bag packed, already having your shoes ready to go? Like having things set up ahead of time and creating habits that make it easier for you to follow through on those moments of weakness or the inner critic that comes to make the excuse.
Yeah, well, we kind of touch on that point exactly, and I kind of use the analogy of the word friction. And friction is basically a physics term where the coefficient of friction, the higher that number, the more resistance there is between two surfaces. Less friction, it moves easier. More friction, it moves with more resistance, or it takes more force to move that object across that surface. So with decision fatigue or things that we want to do, we would like to decrease the friction. And for those things that we know maybe we shouldn't be doing, we should increase the friction. And a simple analogy or example I give to my clients, like if they have a penchant to buy potato chips and they know that's probably not the best food to fuel their bodies, maybe putting that where we put them in our house is the very bottom of the pantry, like where I literally have to get on my knees to bend down and reach in to get them. And that is enough friction for me to get on hardtail on my knees to reach that chips. That's enough of a deterrent for me not to want to grab those chips. Now, for some other people, maybe that's not enough friction. They may have to put it in the freezer outside. I have a client that literally has to lock his cabinets and he gives his wife the key, but at least he's doing something to create the friction between him and the peanut butter in this case. So, with decision fatigue, one of the concepts I researched prepping for this is called the Diderot effect. And what that is a fancy way of saying like one behavior leads to the next, kind of like dominoes. And in decision fatigue and decision analysis paralysis, like Sam mentioned, I've been guilty of that in the business when you have 12 decisions confronting you, and I got 4 different staff members asking me for my opinion and what would you do on this, and what, and like it just gets so overwhelming that I just don't have the energy to make any decision, and no decision is the worst decision in most cases. So I can totally relate to what decision fatigue is, and maybe can touch on how we can create some awareness when we're in that quagmire of energy sucking decision fatigue. I call it, like in the example you use, like if you are coming home from work and you want to go to the gym, in most cases, like the exact example you gave, I tell my clients, reduce the friction, have a gym bag, do not go home, do not pass go straight to the gym, because once you get to the house, the I call it the energy sucking vortex of the couch is going to draw you in and suck you into its confines, and you're going to have a lot of trouble breaking that momentum or creating the momentum to get out of the couch. So, do you have any more non-gym examples of decision fatigue, and or an example of how we can kind of break out of the confines of it?
Well, I think just in general around thought management, I mean, we have so many thoughts a day, it would be impossible, right, to manage every
Thousands.
single one, right? Thousands. But I think what we can all do to begin to get better at our mental management is always start with just a thought audit where you create intentionality around just paying more attention to the quality of your thoughts and like how often in those points of decision fatigue are you giving in to the excuses? And like what's typically happening around that time? What is the trigger that's keeping you stuck and not moving forward? So just like without judgment, that's where you have to start is at least do a thought audit of what's currently happening, and then recognize that. See, we can't always control like the very first thought that we have because we just get on autopilot, especially if we are used to making these types of excuses and justifications with ourselves, and to really break out of that. But you can be intentional about choosing a second or third more empowering thought that's more serving. And so I think we can get ourselves out of the decision fatigue when we can create a second, more empowering thought that's more aligning with the person that we actually want to be and become, if we can make that thought believable. So let me just provide an example. So if you make a thought like, I am going to be like a rockin' body supermodel, yada, yada, like that might be hard for you to believe based on where you're at, even if that's something that you would want. So if you need to create a more affirming, encouraging thoughts, make it true, make it believable. So it's like, I am working hard every day to become better with my physical fitness and follow through on my word and commitment. See, that's a little bit more believable than like I am a supermodel. So I think there's a
Right.
lot of misconception around how to properly use affirmations. So
Mm.
make sure your affirmations are true and that they're believable, and you use them in those moments when the decision fatigue is there, you're being hit with the excuse, fire back with the truth and the new empowering thought of who you'd like to step into and become. I also think one other point would be, I think sometimes we actually are really hard on ourselves and we think that we're not supposed to like have the negative self-sabotaging thoughts that we do, and then we spiral into like guilt and shame, and we just feel awful because we can't seem to manage ourselves or our habits better. And
Mhm.
I think one of the greatest gifts that you can give to yourself is in those moments where you have that little enemy on your shoulder that's testing you, just agree with your adversary. Yeah, you're right. I don't feel like working out today. I really don't want to go. Don't try to convince, just agree with your adversary, but then you take a different action. That's what's so key.
Mhm.
Agree with the adversary, just that it's there, acknowledge its presence, but take the action that's opposite of what your adversary and enemy is telling you to do. And that's when you actually create change.
Do you think in the day and age of instant gratification that we're all guilty of, and we want those instantaneous results. And if it doesn't happen overnight, I'm a failure. Um, it feels like that could tie into the angle you're kind of walking us through right now. Does that resonate?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think that it's very well, we live in a culture where we're like, I want what I want, and I want it now, and I want to put it in a microwave, not over the stove top, and I need it quick, and I need it now. And it is really hard to say, oh, like I want to make all these physical changes in my body, but like it's gonna take forever. Like, oh, like I'm discouraged because we do want it now. But I believe, and as I've learned, and as I'm continuing to learn, that the greatest changes that we can ever make in our lives, even beyond physical fitness, in our own minds, in our finances, in relationships, in faith, whatever, it isn't just something that you do like one time or like for a week and you're like, oh, I'm good now. It's what we do consistently that actually creates like lasting habit change, if
Yes.
that makes sense.
Yeah. And one of the things that I discovered last summer reading the book, The Happiness Advantage by Sean Anchor, highly recommend that as a tool in everybody's toolkit. But the big takeaway is we are conditioned growing up by our parents and by our environment, by our friends, that success leads to happiness. We go get the, Harvard education, we go get the consulting job, and then we get the ivory tower, and then we're going to be happy. Or we go buy the car, or we get the house, or we get the guy or girl of our dreams, and then we're going to be happy. But all the research says that's backwards. You find happiness first, which is available to all of us here and now with awareness, and then you'll be more likely to be successful. So it's that grass is greener mentality that we are all guilty of, and I was guilty for many years. And when I moved to Tampa, it was because I had the awareness that I was chasing the next city. I'm going to meet the person. It's going to be the next city, the next place. And I said, I'm the common denominator in this situation. I need to break that pattern. So you're going to grow roots in Tampa and they're not moving. And hopefully, God opened the door and blessed me with the beautiful wife and kids I have now and the life that I always dreamed of. And it wasn't because I was moving to the next place or buying the next car. So maybe you can touch on that concept that happiness is available to us all. And we talked a lot about fulfillment, and when people find fulfillment, when you're living in fulfillment, if it's not in your job, it can be in other areas of your life. I've seen just in my wife walking into fulfillment and loving what she does now, how that impacts in a very positive way our relationship, her perspective towards me, and how she loves me even more because she's walking in fulfillment. So, do you have any insights on that? I'm kind of putting you on the spot. I'm sorry. That was
Oh, this
questions.
is awesome. This makes our heart very happy. This is one of my favorite things to talk about, to support, to share with others because it is critical. We live in a culture today that tells us that we just don't have enough. We're not measuring up. We need more, like we need more money, we need more fame, we need the promotion, we need all these other people to like us. And what happens is we become conditioned and we actually believe that. And like Matt was saying, we actually think, okay, once I get this promotion, then I'll be happy. Once I actually get married finally, then I'll be happy, or whatever it is. And what happens is you do that, and then there's another thing after that. And then before you know, we're on this hamster wheel that we just can't ever get off of because we're not actually finding contentment from within if it's subject to the environment or everybody else. And the reality is like we have zero control over other people. So it has to come from within first. And I think that that's the greatest lesson that I've had to learn, honestly, the hard way. And I'm still learning is like, what does this mean for me to love me and to be fulfilled with me? Because when we find contentment, with and joy, honestly, and peace that God can bring within ourselves, then to be quite frank, it don't matter what's happening in the outside world. And it doesn't matter if somebody hurts your feelings or lets you down, because you can depend on you and you alone and God, if you're in faith, to find that. And the beautiful thing is, once you do find that,
Preach it, sister.
then you have the ability to give it away to other people. And that's a really beautiful gift. So,
Absolutely. And that's a journey that I can speak to personally that we all have to go through. And maybe if we leave you with nothing else today, I would say one of the big takeaways is we're always stop chasing things. And ultimately, I always tell people that want to get married or get into companionship, because I had to discover this myself, and I got a happy end to the story. But we, before you can know and love and like somebody else, you have to know, like, and love yourself. And if you can't look in the mirror in the morning and just smile at what you see, the person that's staring back at you, start there. Like, work on that. Do the work. It's not necessarily fun, but it's so empowering. And when the switch goes off and it clicks, and then you realize, like, basically, I realized that I was the common denominator of all my failed relationships. And what was I willing to change in exchange for the companionship that I was looking for a lifetime, and somebody that would marry me, accept me for all my faults, which there's numerous faults that I have. And so here's the cool story that happened. Like, I went like the self-imposed retreat in December of 2005, and I just kind of reflected on all this, did some realization work, and just sat outside with some white space and time with God and my thoughts, and realized, okay, what are the things that I'm going to change, and what am I willing to change? And then, what would I like to attract in my life, if I'm willing to do those things? And then the cool part was 3 weeks later, I'm telling you, though, I had peace. I literally had peace and acceptance that I could be content with myself, even if I didn't meet anybody. And I was just to that point. I arrived, so to speak. And then I think you got to get to that point. And then God said, okay, my son, you're ready. And 3 weeks later, I met my wife, Holly. And the rest is history, because we've been married, we'll be 16 years this year. And yes, there's been ups and downs, but she's accepted me through all those trials, plus all the crap that goes on with running a business, especially a gym business during COVID, and 11 lawsuits that we went through, and just all the misery I wouldn't want to put anybody through. And she stood by me through that, because she was the person, the values that I wrote down that I knew I needed to attract. And God said, here you go. And so if nothing else, that would be an incentive to do that self-work. If you do want companionship, or maybe it's a business or a fulfillment thing, that it really pays off. So I don't know if you can speak to that, or you can kind of share your own experience with clients, getting to that process as well.
Yeah, I think a good way to take what we're discussing right now about the idea of alignment and really put it into practical action. So, how do I begin to really find fulfillment for me? There's a great exercise that I learned several years ago, that you can do, where you write out, okay, what do I enjoy doing? Right? What are the activities that you enjoy? Like, what brings you peace? What fills your soul? What do you enjoy doing? Another column of, like, what are you good at? What are your natural gifts? What are your talents? What are your abilities? What are you drawn to? What do people typically compliment you on? And then what does the world need more of is the third column, right? And you can do these three areas all separate from one another, just to see what comes up. And the key to finding alignment, fulfillment, and purpose is to look on your list and see, okay, where do I have the most overlap here? Because that's how we're going to find the most fulfillment. So for me, for example, when I do this list, it's like, okay, I really love to coach people. I think I'm good at it, hopefully. And does the world need more of that? Sure. right? So that's what I mean. And when you look for the common themes, then it can start giving you more clarity and direction
Mhm.
what you can be doing with more of your time to fill it with the right things that are going to bring you that alignment and that sense of purpose. So,
Absolutely. And I think what we'll do is bring it on home with kind of this concept of consistent or daily action steps. And one of the concepts I teach out of Atomic Habits by James Clear is what he calls habit stacking. It's finding one habit, and this is going back to that Diderot effect. If, and I'm going to use my own example on Sundays, I call this is when I become domestic man. And usually it starts with doing my morning Bible study, and then I put a load of laundry in, and then that kind of cues me to cook brunch for the family. Then that cues me to do the dishes and clean the kitchen, and then by then the laundry's done. Then I fold laundry. So it's like I'm staying in momentum, but the concept of habit stacking is one thing. You can start with one, and then you get that to be a habit in your life. Maybe that for me, it was the morning practice of gratitude. And so I got that where I did that consistently every single morning. And then, okay, that's a habit, it's done. Then I stacked on a second habit, which was some quiet time and Bible study. I used the Bible app. And then that led to the next habit was prepping coffee for my wife and putting a note on her coffee every morning that is something of love or encouragement, and then that leads to the next thing. So but you start with one, and so that's kind of that habit stacking concept he teaches. And but I really wanted to dig into, and I was curious genuinely about the daily action steps or consistent action steps, or tiny daily habits, whatever you want to call it, that somebody can start with and implement tomorrow in their own life, and start this process to where they want to go.
yeah, well, first and foremost, I think when we want to change our lives and or improve our lives in any area, whether it be physical fitness or financially or relationally, it's very important to have a vision and a picture of what that looks like. There's a quote that I love that stuck with me for many years, like when your why is strong enough, like the how is going to reveal itself. And so when we're ever like in a dark space in our lives, to be able to see a way out, we have to see things as better than they are. So we can create and craft visions for our lives that we would be excited about stepping into. However, we have to be careful because sometimes we may craft this really awesome vision and we're excited about it, but it's also kind of overwhelming because maybe it's like, oh my gosh, like I have to lose a lot of weight, or I got to change all these financial habits, or I got to be nicer to people, or whatever it is. And it's just like a big, scary, audacious goal, and you've never done it before. So when we're looking at the bigger picture, it can be really overwhelming, and then we can get really discouraged and we get off track, and then it creates the decision fatigue we were talking about earlier. So what we want to do to make it as easy as possible to reach that bigger picture vision that we have is to break your big goal into smaller goals, right, that are more manageable. So if you have a yearly goal of losing a significant amount of weight or whatever that might be, okay, great. And what's your why? And what does that look like in 6 months? What does that mean monthly? What does that mean weekly? And what does that mean for your actual habits and the decisions that you make weekly, and not just weekly, but daily. So I'm going to give you an example. Actually, I pulled up for myself how I did this for like a yearly goal for improving my walking stamina, for walking 30 minutes 3 times a week. And I had that as like a yearly goal and then a 6 month goal. But then for daily actions, there's a couple of different options. So it's walk outside, walk at the park, somewhere in nature, go to the gym, ride a bike, stretch my muscles, have the right water intake, and fuel my body with greens. So those are different things that I can do each day, right, that's going to get me closer to that bigger picture goal. So when we break it down daily and it comes down to that point of decision, we're no longer looking just at the bigger picture that's overwhelming. It's like, okay, I just got to drink my water bottle. I'm good, right? You see how we're making it much easier then for us to follow through on our commitments. And then before you know it, we're that much closer to actually achieving the goal because we've broken it down in a way that's actually manageable. So,
Yeah, and for those that are in business, we actually kind of use that chunking technique to break down what could sound like this bigger, massive number into something more manageable. So, like for our unlimited gym membership at 159 a month, like that might sound pretty ominous, but when I say, that's only $4.10 a day, it's like, oh, that's not
right.
that much at all for something that could potentially change your life. So we focus on the baby steps and then, but pick one or two. And if you would agree with me on that, and then get those consistent and then do that habit stacking, then add one to it and then add one. And then you essentially form this very powerful routine that becomes second nature or your new normal. And you're keeping the eye on the prize. And like Sam said, you got to have a strong, powerful, emotional why. And another great resource is Simon Sinek's It Starts With Why, or you can just watch his TED Talk for, less than 20 minutes and, just learn that concept. And the more emotional and powerful your why is, that's like the gas in your motivation tank. And it's going to kind of fuel those daily action steps until they're just like, it would be abnormal if you didn't do them. It should feel very unnormal once you've ingrained a habit. So I just want to sum up and then we'll turn it over to let you bring it on home and wrap it up. Before we do that, though, I want anybody that's interested in working with you, your website I'm going to put in the comments, but tell people how they can reach you.
Sure. Well, I guess the website has a place where contact me, so you can certainly go there. Facebook is also a great place. So if you just want to shoot me a direct message there, I'd love to connect, jam on any of these topics or anything else that may be on your mind or heart. Definitely down to connect with any of Matt's peeps. They're all friends of mine. So
Yeah, her website is letyourlightshine.coach. And this is one of the connection points that Sam and I discovered early on, because my final prayer every morning is, God, let me be the light to someone or somebody today. And when I saw her name of her business and her website, I was like, that's what it's all about, being the light and shining in the darkness, because we all have plenty of that we're surrounded with. So I'll put that website in the show notes and in the comments on our Facebook page. And, we talked about a thought audit was a great concept you mentioned. The decision fatigue, how to work through that, and those tiny daily action steps that will lead to those bigger chunks that get you ultimately where you want to go. So you have any final thoughts on how you can kind of wrap that up in a nice bow for everybody? No.
sure. I actually, one thing that was coming up is in those moments of weakness or temptation, decision fatigue, where we're potentially making excuses with ourselves, we can say something along the lines of like, I don't want to do this because, and you just tell the truth. I don't want to do this because I'm really tired. I'm really pissed off from work. I'm really mad at my significant other. I don't want to do this right now because, but it's going to be worth it because. And then you fill in the second half of that statement with why it's worth it. And it's worth it because you care about your health, because God loves you, because you love your family, whatever it is. And that's how you honor the truth. You honor the excuse. It's there, it's present, and you make your why and your reason bigger than the excuse. And then you just take the right action to align with your why and your reason and the person that you want to become. Because the more that you make the right choice in those moments of weakness and temptation, you're going to strengthen that muscle and that belief in yourself of self integrity when you say that you're going to do something. and that's pretty big.
That is awesome. That was like a banana split sundae you just painted there, and I got the cherry on top that I want to bring this home with. And it was eye-opening to me. It was this research on creating action in ourselves, and they did a study. And again, it was eye-opening. You can see I have educate in the top of our coaching shirts, and that's just a philosophy I believe in, creating awareness. But so they did 3 groups, and the idea was getting them to exercise consistently 2 to 3 times on a weekly basis. So the first group was the control group. They just got the instructions to exercise 2 to 3 times a week. The second group, same instructions 2 to 3 times a week, but they were given an hour and a half of educational lecture on the importance and the life extending properties of exercise and the benefits of longevity and all these things. So a heavy dose of education and motivation. And then the third group had the same instructions, but no motivation, no education. They were just instructed to write a statement. I will exercise the activity on this day at this time at this place. So that template can be used for any goal, the activity, the place, the time, and the location. And so that was the 3 setups. And here's the results. The control group that just got the instructions without the education, they had a 36%, 35% compliance rate. The education group, hour and a half, going to be highly motivated, and I was guilty in believing my education would motivate people, was only 38%. So only 3% more. The group that had no education, no motivation, that just wrote the action step, 91% compliance. So I totally rethought my coaching. I was saying, I'm going to stop educating people. I'm just going to teach them to write a goal statement, an action statement. So whatever that one daily action step you want to incorporate, just write the action statement. I will fill in the blank on this time, fill in the blank at this place. So for me, it was like, I will say my gratitude on my knees by my bed first thing in the morning every day. And I did that. And that was my first step. And I've been doing that for 3 years now, and I've stacked on multiple habits to that. So hopefully that can be a cherry on top for that nice banana split you laid out for us. Hopefully
So
that's
good.
anybody hungry. I know it's almost dessert time when people will be watching this, but it's been a pleasure. Letyourlightshine.coach if you want to connect with Sam. Excited to share that she's been raising money to fund a trip to Costa Rica, a mission trip to go provide clean drinking water to people that are less fortunate. And just today, you can share the good news. You hit your financial goals so you can halfway fund that trip, right?
We're halfway funded. Yes, God is really good. I'm in a really good mood.
Absolutely. You can see the smile on your face. So just thank you so much for your time and your wisdom and sharing your experience and your thoughts. And everybody, just remember, mindset's right here. Your mind is the magic pill. It can be in your life, and learn to harness that. Tap into the resources we mentioned. Fill your mind with good, positive thoughts. It leaves less room for the bad ones. So
Thank you, Matt. This is so awesome and definitely a privilege.
All right. Well, thank you to everybody for tuning in. And if you find this content useful, let us know. If you have questions, you can put those in the comments. And if you have some topic ideas for future Magic Pill Mondays, please let me know. I'd love to talk about things that you're actually interested in. So we'll see you next time on Magic Pill Monday. I'm Coach Matt O'Brien. That's Sam Litrico. And y'all have an amazing week. We'll see you.
Bye, everybody.